What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and we've got some new information on Carmelo Anthony's indictment. Now, a lot of people know, hey, he's been charged with X, Y, and Z, which we're going to talk about, but the indictment via grand jury is really where the rubber meets the road. It's what he's going to have to face in court, and if you're like me, you are not optimistic that he's going to get the correct charge. All signs point to him getting off easy, and I'm just preparing myself for the worst. On top of that, The Guardian put out an insane article today, whining and complaining that everybody else was able to raise money, but they had no problem with Carmelo Anthony, who definitely raised all of his money based on hatred of one particular group of people, and that is, white folks. And it's never been more obvious. My German Shepherd alarm is now going off, but let's continue with the video anyway. I want to let everyone know, I want to thank everyone who has picked up or pre-ordered their Mega Mixology Cookbook, which is 100 pages of meme-tastic, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic recipes that my team put together to help support the channel over the summer when news is slow. You're absolutely going to love this. If you got tailgates for Trump, you're going to love this one. It's available at thequartering.com/shop. Linked in the description. You can get it signed or unsigned, and they are now shipping. They're in stock here, and me and my wife ship out every order, so you might even get dog hair in yours. Now, first, the most important update. This came late yesterday, that Carmelo Anthony will be indicted next week. I highly suspect it will be next week, Friday, because they're going to want to minimize press coverage. The media, I mean, if it's on Monday or Tuesday, for example, maybe that means that he will get the appropriate charge. But if they wait till Friday, that's going to mean they're going to let him off with an easier charge. That's what I suspect. Now, many of you may not be totally familiar. What are the charges that he's actually facing? We all know that he confessed to the incident, and he quickly said it was self-defense. However, nobody believes that. No evidence exists to support that. And I think I'll leave a like on the video right now if you believe that if there was any evidence whatsoever to smear Austin Metcalf or to lionize Carmelo Anthony as some sort of self-defense hero, we would have seen it weeks ago. Well, he is facing first-degree murder charges in Texas. He is being prosecuted as an adult under the state's concurrent jurisdiction laws, which allows prosecutors to charge minors as adults without judicial oversight. Anthony is accused, of course, of taking Austin Metcalf's life, something he admitted to. He was initially held in jail, but was later released to house arrest with an ankle monitor, with conditions including supervision and restrictions on his social media and contact with the victim's family. His lawyer plans to plead not guilty and argue self-defense. Now, I think it's also important to pull up the difference between charges and indictment, because this is why this video is important. Now, in criminal law, a charge is a formal accusation that the person has committed a crime, typically issued by a local prosecutor. However, an indictment, on the other hand, is a formal accusation issued by the grand jury after reviewing all the evidence. Essentially, both are accusations, but an indictment is specifically a grand jury's determination of a probable cause, while the charge can be filed by a prosecutor without grand jury involvement. Meaning, the actual indictment could be very different than the initial charge. We know he's charged with manslaughter, but after a grand jury looks at it, it could be reduced to, first-degree murder, but it could be reduced to manslaughter. It could even be dropped. It could be reduced to some sort of, much lesser charge. And that's the difference. Now, there's a lower standard of evidence in terms of an initial charge. The indictment typically involves a prosecutor filing the document or charge, but an indictment is a grand jury or a group of citizens convened to review all the evidence in the case, decide if there's probable cause to proceed with a criminal case. So just to be clear, Carmelo Anthony's charges could still be dropped. The grand jury could very easily decide, we think that it's self-defense, and he could walk free. That's why this is this important. That's why the grand jury convening over this is as important as it is. He could still walk free. He could get a bigger charge, a more escalating charge. Maybe the grand jury sees the evidence and they see that it's premeditated. The initial charge is, while it has some meaning, the indictment is what really matters, because the standard of proof requires a much higher standard of evidence and also generally probable cause. So a prosecutor presents evidence to the grand jury, and then if the grand jury believes there's sufficient evidence, they issue that indictment, and at that point, the trial can move forward. So this is something very, very different, and Karmelo Anthony could still walk free. And I've been reporting on this. Like, I try to not be a doom and gloom guy on the channel. I mean, heck, I make a meme cookbook. But, you know, just everything we've seen, not just in like how we see Derek Chauvin, how Kyle Rittenhouse, how Daniel Penny, all these situations were reversed. All of them had to go through lengthy trials and face significant charges and throw their fate up to the jury. There's really no doubt that Karmelo Anthony did this. He brought the weapon with him. He admitted to doing it. Now we know that journalists and local reporters have viewed the security footage and say that there absolutely was not a fight that led to this incident. So I don't know. Also, we see this article from The Guardian, which is a far leftoid BLM woke rag outlet, now saying go viral for racist behavior, receives $750,000. There's a brand new article, came out today, inside the new extremist crowdfunding campaigns. This is an article solely smeared at anybody who decides or needs to raise money in their defense when the races are reversed. When a white person suffers an attack at the hands of a black person, The Guardian says that you are signaling supremacists. I'm not kidding you. There's a lot in this article, but I want to start with this section down below. Because they're basically saying that Karmelo Anthony started all of this, but he was a good boy who didn't do nothing wrong. Here we have, I wanted to find this, where is it? There we go. They talk about Shiloh Hendricks, who raised a bunch of money after going viral for saying the N-word. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's a viable business plan. I don't have any issue with people that donated her money, but I'm not going to pretend that there wasn't a racial motivation there. My issue is that this newspaper, these journalists, are completely ignoring the reason why Karmelo Anthony raised as much money as he did. If you just read the comments, there were black folks in those comments, presumably, celebrating what Karmelo did, saying that Austin Metcalf deserved it. There was absolutely positively the same racial motivation behind the Karmelo Anthony case fundraising. But this article said, well, it was different with him. It was just all good people who wanted to do good things. You see this, they're talking about Shiloh Hendricks. Hendricks' crowdfund came after the viral fundraising campaign for Karmelo Anthony on the same platform. They're talking about Give, Send, Go. Anthony, a black teenager from Frisco, Texas, allegedly took the life of Austin Metcalf, a white teenager from a rival school during a track meet. Again, this is not alleged. He admitted to it. There is no allegedly here. Of course, then they say white supremacists encourage people to donate to Hendricks funds as a rebuttal to the money raised for Anthony's legal defense fund, which Dwyer said probably boosted the campaign's success. Again, no race fueling, no race nonsense in Karmelo Anthony's case. He was a good boy that didn't do anything wrong. But everybody who donated money to Shiloh, for example, they're evil supremacists. Hendricks' video also served as a form of recruitment and camaraderie for folks who have bigoted views, but are not yet white supremacists. Got in front of millions and millions of eyes. It drove donors that might not necessarily be hardcore white supremacists, but in their eyes, they don't see what she did as a problem. I don't either. She's allowed to say what she wants. You know, I didn't donate money, but I don't care if other people donated money. This same article, or this same news outlet, The Guardian, published exactly 0 articles condemning all of the hate, the white hatred in Carmelo Anthony's fundraiser. As far as I know, not a single mainstream media outlet, which, you know, I'm talking ABC, NBC, The Guardian, Daily Beast, all these left-leaning outlets, not a single one of them published an article condemning the wild anti-white comments in Carmelo Anthony's fundraiser. People are voting with their views and their dollar. For a lot of people, it might be their first action outside of posting to social media to push their views and make a donation. Again, were all the people that donated to Carmelo Anthony pushing their views? Well, no. No. Everyone that donated to him and said, you know, destroy Whitey, they were good boys. The latest incident represents a sharp contrast to how the public reacted to racist incidents just a few years ago with the launch of the BLM scam. Many white people began facing public outrage over problematic behavior, including the harassment of black people in public spaces. I don't see a lot of that. Are we saying that George Floyd was not a criminal and not committing a crime? Now, of course, there are Karens who, there are these old white ladies that are like, heavens to Murgatroyd, a white person or a black person doing nothing wrong at all, I'm going to have a meltdown. There's like 1 to every 100,000 situations that it gets reversed. How many white people are, on the receiving end of black crime or, bad behavior, but nobody ever says anything? The bottom line is there's bad people on all sides, but the media only reports one. They destroy these white people's lives if they have a Karen moment. But when black folks do it, they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in fundraisers and say that they're oppressed. And of course, you have The Guardian excusing and hand-waving all of it. I hope you're informed by this video. Hopefully we get the appropriate indictment on Carmelo Anthony next week. Make sure you subscribe or follow down below. Keep it locked in here because the minute we get the news, I will report it. It may still come out this week. I hope you're informed by this video, and we'll talk to you again real soon.